Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome for joining us. Um, we are from the AIDS Network here in Hamilton, and my name is Noxine Omokoto, and that's my colleague, and she will
I'm, No-
introduce herself.
I'm Novella Dingani, the African Caribbean and Black Community Outreach Worker. I also work at the AIDS Network, serving Hamilton, Halton, Haldeman, Norfolk, and Brant. So you can go on our website as well or the TAN Facebook page to get an idea of what we do and our hours. We also have our harm reduction services that we're still doing right now that are available. So the next 45 minutes, what we're discussing is just breaking down cultural HIV myths and stigma. So the one that
I,
I'm
I
gonna,
forgot to, I forgot to tell the people my role.
oh, what is your
Okay.
role now?
I am the Y coordinator, so I am the Women's Community Development Worker, and my role is funded by the Women's HIV and AIDS Initiative.
Awesome. Right. So we're gonna get started. Given that the population that I specifically work with is African, Caribbean, and Black communities, what are some of the myths that I hear over time, like within the time I've been in my position, the main one is if I sleep with a virgin, that cures HIV. So that
Mhm.
I've heard this like numerous times, and this is false. So there's a lot of cases. If you were to even go online, I'm pretty sure it will come up. This comes up a whole lot where you see even children like at the age of like 5 or 10 being raped because of folks thinking that they can cure their HIV or AIDS at a time that they've been infected with by sleeping with that person, by sleeping with a virgin.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that too, Noxie? Like, what's your experience as well, like around like the whole virgin myth?
Yes, I've heard about that, and all it is doing is spreading HIV infection.
Hmm.
And children never have consent, will never give consent because they're children. That is just rape and nothing else but rape. And yes, sleeping with a virgin will not cure HIV at all. It will just spread HIV.
It's just unfortunate. We just thinking about like the children that can speak for themselves, and even
Mhm.
that is just an issue because it's like women that are mostly the victims, right? That's what happens. That most cases is the women that get raped.
Mhm.
Given that you work with women, what's like their experiences as well? Have you heard women that share that kind or like any similarities in that sense?
No, not the that part of it. Haven't heard that. Like some women that I have worked with don't come from, well, they may come from areas where some people may believe that, but they themselves do not believe that.
Mhm.
Like some of them are really well informed
Yes.
when it comes to that.
Anything else you wanted to add to that myth, or did you want us to move forward?
We can move forward. I just wanted to mention that for the people that are watching, if you have any cultural myths that you want us to discuss, please type it in the discussion comment section and we will tackle that one. Okay.
Okay.
And also, we can also discuss traditional medication that some people believe that cures HIV. So
I think even
traditional medicine can reduce some of the symptoms of HIV, but it does not cure HIV at all. So for people that do believe in traditional medicine, my advice would be to take the medication that your actual physician prescribes to you and take that, and then maybe you can take the traditional medication on as an addition to that, but never leave the medication you've been prescribed by your doctor.
I think that's a great one, but it's challenging in a sense,
Yeah, I
especially
know.
for a lot of like couples where you find, let's say the husband is against
Mm-hmm.
doing like the traditional way and it's all about like taking medication, and where
Mm-hmm.
maybe the wife or the girlfriend or the partner is against taking like Western medication and they want to do like the natural way.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like? I don't even know how, like where would you begin? Like how does one even like tackle that?
Well, if you said if one spouse does not wants to take the traditional route and
Mhm.
one wants to take the more modern doctor
Right.
route, I think it depends on accessibility, because
Definitely.
if the person who wants to take the traditional route is the one who's holding all the cards, meaning the other spouse cannot come to an aid service organization like ours to ask for advice or to go to their doctor without the knowledge of their spouse and
Mhm.
ask for medication and stuff like that. So I guess it comes down to accessibility.
Mhm.
And I know it's not easy for a lot of people because some people, especially if they're facing some type of violence in the relationship, it's harder.
Right.
Or sometimes culturally, there's some cultures where you have to respect your spouse and what they say goes. So it differs for a lot of people, but yeah, it's a tough one. But if you can access any health services, then please do ask for treatment from your doctor.
I remember when I first started, I think it was back in maybe like 2014, we did have a client that did come with the background that at the time, like the pastor had told them that they're gonna like pray it off and to
Hmm.
take this like certain like natural herbs to cure like the
Hmm.
HIV. So it was
Hmm.
really tough. It was like hard trying to convince the client. We had to work with her for a good 2 years just to finally like convince her to even go to like our SIS clinic, the HIV
Hmm.
special clinic here in Hamilton, to go
Yeah.
and seek treatment and get tested. Because every time you see her, you see that she would be getting worse, but of
Hmm.
course, had to do some serious convincing and also got her family involved with her consent, of course. And then she was able to
I
start
mean,
medication after.
when it comes to religion, I think that's why it's very important for us as aid service organization staff to build relationships with religious groups so that they can pray for people
It
and
takes courage.
use all sorts of things. Be it exactly, it takes courage. Be it like they use holy water, or it's prayer, or it's some type of meditation, or anything like that. Each the faith leaders, if they're knowledgeable about HIV, then they can say, you know what, I will pray for you, but also please do take your HIV treatment. Make sure you adhere to what your doctor says, adhere to treatment.
It's quite important. It's just sad that some leaders don't see the importance or like or the role that they play in one's lives, especially when it comes to
Hmm.
their health, right? Because they have a
Yeah,
huge impact. A lot of people believe and follow everything like their leaders say, right? Their faith leaders say,
yeah. And I think that also builds upon the stigma within churches or religious groups about HIV.
that's true.
Because, like you said, like someone may believe, okay, I'm supposed to be taking my treatment, but then their faith leader is saying, I'm going to cure your HIV if I pray for you.
Yeah. Or they'll be like, oh, this is the work
Mhm.
of the devil. You don't need this medication. You're healed in the name of Jesus. So,
Yeah, yeah. So it's difficult, but people should take their treatment and then also pray about it.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Also, some people say male circumcision cures HIV. That's another myth.
I still hear that till this day. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And with circumcision, it does not cure HIV. It does reduce the risk of infection. So that's all it does. It reduces the risk of infection. It does not cure HIV. So if someone is going to engage in any sexual activity, you still need to have some type of protection. Use condoms, because if you do not use a condom and your sexual partner has HIV or you have HIV, then you can infect your partner with HIV.
Yeah. It just makes me think of like the other myth that I've heard, which I think is still practiced till today in some parts
Hmm.
of the world, the wife exchange, where one's partner has deceased, right? They think just because that person is deceased, right? Then they give the wife to another, be like a brother or like a first cousin, and
Oh, yeah.
that cures the person that's infected with HIV. Have you heard of that?
I have heard about it. I actually watched a documentary
Mm-hmm.
where they were saying that, well, there's a woman who is now banished by her community because she would not marry her husband's brother
Mm-hmm.
because she did not want to be infected with HIV.
Women's rights.
Yeah, it becomes complicated.
And that one also kind of goes with the dry sex myth as well, where it goes in hand that it's more to me it's like becomes like rape or like forced sex where there's like no lubrication and
Hmm.
horrible, horrible.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, like some people, it's unfortunate that some places, some people don't have access to aid service organizations that will give them free lube
Hmm.
or education on using lube for people who are possibly dry, and also not to force sex upon anybody. That's just wrong.
Yeah, just like concerned, like just from a negotiation,
Consent
right?
is
Like,
very, very important. Consent is very, very important. And like I said in the beginning, that is just rape.
and I think it goes with negotiation, right? Like, give that person a
Hmm.
choice if they want to use a condom or not, if they even want to sleep with you, right? So it's
Exactly.
it's a big challenge because in some cultures, right, that's another thing. Culture comes into play that in most cases that women don't even have the right. You have no right to refuse your partner
Hmm.
sex, right? And in some cultures, like rape doesn't exist, especially in like married couples. Okay.
Yeah, it's sad.
It does. This makes
it,
me think.
it's really, really sad that sometimes for some people, they have no choice in these matters. They have no choice over their own bodies. What other myth have you heard? We've talked about the virgin, sleeping with the virgin.
Even like the traditional healers one, right?
Hmm.
I think that's pretty huge as well, where people use it almost kind of like borderline witchcraft in a sense. Some people that still practice witchcraft on people
Hmm.
that they think they can like cast like a spell on that person to get infected, right? So I've heard that people think, oh, I got bewitched. This is why I'm HIV positive, or a family member they suspect person's been bewitched, and that's how they got positive.
It's true. It's true. I mean, when people suspect that they have been bewitched, that's why they have um, HIV. I mean, HIV is transmitted in so many ways. And I guess for those people, sometimes, especially the initial stage of receiving news that someone is now living with HIV. The first stage is probably denial.
Can you hear me clearly, like loudly? I cannot. I think something
Yeah,
happened
I
with
can hear you.
as
So
loud as
sometimes the
before.
stage is, yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes it is denial. And then also the assumption that, oh my God, I'm going to die. So then it's not witchcraft. That's why, I mean, in Canada, we're lucky enough to have AIDS service organizations that will give counseling to people when they're first diagnosed. And for some people, if they're lucky enough to have a doctor who's knowledgeable, the doctor can also give counseling and can also make a referral to an AIDS service organization.
Yeah.
But for certain countries where I think a lot of places do have AIDS service organizations, but some people do not have access to them.
Right.
So I
Or they're not
think
as
in
funded as
places,
other like places as well.
yes, funding is a big one as well. So if someone doesn't have access, then they don't have knowledge, and it's not their fault that they don't know these things. It's just that they don't have the right people to tell them about HIV. So they will be just going on assumptions and hearsay.
Because I think even till today,
Again, to the,
people.
yeah,
Sorry?
no, go ahead.
No, I was saying even like today, when you think about like HIV and like the whole movement, what's killing people is more like stigma and lack of knowledge and like ignorance. I think that's what's killing a lot of people than actually like the actual virus itself, right? So it's all like
Mm-hmm.
intertwined at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And then some people believe that ARVs cause people to gain weight
Or to lose weight. Or even to lose weight.
or
I've
to
heard of
lose
that
weight.
one too.
Yeah. And
I think I have a comment down here. Is Karen.
okay, we hear things like cultural competency and cultural sensitivity for service providers, but what is the next step beyond understanding the issues? What would a service provider move forward in? Yikes. Move forward in supporting someone when these myths can have such serious implications for someone. Um, what is the next step
That's a
beyond
good question.
understanding the issue?
I'll say for starters, it's a trusting and
Yeah.
understanding one's culture because I think
Hmm.
sometimes we kind of just put everyone in like one size fits all kind of thing instead of like
Hmm.
getting to know that person's culture and getting to know that person as an individual and their needs as well and getting comfortable
Build
and
the
just listening to that
relationship.
person. Just starting from there, that'll be the starting point. Because I don't think we can have like all services that will translate beef is like a language barrier. That might not be possible as well, right? But just having that understanding one's culture, where that person's coming from, and their needs.
Yeah, I agree. I think like building a relationship with that person, having dialogue, having respect, and setting boundaries
Mm-hmm.
for that person so that it's not a top-down approach.
Right.
It's you working with that person because at the end of the day, it's their life and you are supporting them. So it's not, um, hey, I'm an academic or I work for an AIDS service organization, so I know it all, and this worked for this person, so it's going to work for you. Yeah. And also connecting people to services, I think is very important. I think even advocating for people. So sometimes it could be going to a doctor's appointment with someone so that you can share their views with their physician, so that it's a conversation. It's what can I say? Like everyone's working together for one purpose,
Having a
which
hard time
is
hearing you.
to, oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, it's like low for some reason.
Oh, I didn't press anything.
I think it's on
Okay.
my end.
Can other people hear me?
Pardon?
I'm asking if other people can hear me. Oh, okay. Karen says she can hear both of us.
That was a great question.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great question. So what else was I saying? Oh, I was talking about the ARVs causing some people to lose weight or gain weight. And sometimes that is the assumption that all of the ARVs do that. It's not all of them. Some of them have been discontinued, and some medication does affect people in a different way. So it won't work for everybody. That's why for the side effects that some people sometimes experience, you tell your doctor, they change it to something that works for you. And also now a lot of medication has been way advanced compared to years before. So now it's different. Anyone else have a question or a myth that they want us to discuss? I mean, also there is, if me or my partner were HIV positive, we could not have children. So that is false.
Mm-hmm.
People who are HIV positive can have children, and their children will be HIV negative if the mother adheres to medication, and then the child also gets treatment after they're born, just to make sure.
I think one of the ones that makes me think right now is like breastfeeding and chest feeding.
Mm-hmm.
I think in some parts of the world, women are allowed to like breastfeed, but then they come here, so then they kind of get confused that they've been doing
Mm-hmm.
this with their doctor's advice and everything and being monitored by the doctor that they're able to breastfeed and chest feed. But once they get here, like to Canada, for example, then they're not allowed to breastfeed. I find a lot of women
Mm-hmm.
face that challenge a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, with Canada, their view is if you don't chest feed, then there's no risk of infection
Mm-hmm.
at all. And then in some countries, they do also say they recommend that people do not breastfeed. However, if you're in a situation whereby you don't have an alternative for the breast milk, then you can breastfeed. But then there's
I
chances
think
of transmission.
it also comes back to that thing you always say like access, right? Who has access? Not everybody has access, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
if that's the only thing that you're able to do to give your child food, be that it's the breast milk, you're gonna do it, right?
Hmm.
So as long as the doctors approves, there you go.
Hmm. And I think it goes back to what Karen had said, like what are the steps? So to be the same thing whereby you don't force the Canadian way on people, but you gradually introduce it. Um, you help the person to understand why they're being told not to breastfeed. So the pros and cons of both methods. what they know, what Canada's saying, and then how you can meet in the middle
Mhm.
with that, and not dismissing their beliefs.
Sure.
But
Did we
yeah,
talk
in
about the one?
Canada,
Go
mhm.
on, sorry.
No, I was just concluding that in Canada, it's recommended that if you're a woman who is living with HIV, you're recommended not to breastfeed. And we do have options. We have organizations like the Teresa Group that will offer um, mothers living with HIV some milk for their babies for a whole year for free.
Mhm. It'll be great if some parts of the world had that
Yeah.
available for other women.
Hmm. So if you do know any woman that is living with HIV here in Canada and wants access to the milk, you can contact the Teresa Group, or you can contact the AIDS Network and we will refer you to the Teresa Group or connect you with the Teresa Group. Do you have
I think
another
another one
one?
that puzzles me till today when people say, "Oh, I can tell if a person's like positive." I'm saying I
Hmm.
can tell by looking at that person.
Yeah.
I think we have a question down here.
Do we see many couples either at risk of or living with HIV?
I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. Because I see, well, when it comes back to the population that I work with, like the ACB population, African Caribbean Black, the problem
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes you see the men become in the forefront, even for like in terms of like healthcare. They'll leave like the wife or their partner home and they go to be at SIS and they go get like the HIV care or even coming at hand where we also have to separate couples and talk to like the wife as an individual because sometimes depending on one's culture the men speaks for the women. I've seen that a couple of times and I always try to separate the two so that I also get like the woman's needs.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. So you were still saying before that you're saying people say they can tell if someone is HIV positive.
Yeah, like it's still like puzzles me. Like I hear that a whole lot, especially when I go into like schools during a presentation. People are like, oh, I can easily tell if I'm about to speak with someone that they have like HIV. They're like, oh, I can tell by the bumps on their face or how like they're built. But that's all
Mm-hmm.
a lie. That is just
Yeah,
false. You cannot tell at all because they are not like symptomatic. So you cannot tell if one's like HIV positive or not. So you just have to
exactly.
assume that everyone is, and then you do what's needed to protect yourself.
Exactly. It's almost like COVID-19
Pretty much.
symptoms. You can't tell who has COVID-19 just by looking at them. So that's why we're told to wear a mask, wash your hands, sanitize your groceries, and all of that stuff because we do not know who has COVID-19. It could be your next door neighbor, it could be the person at your grocery store. Heck, it could be you with COVID-19, but people around you won't know that you have COVID-19. So it's the same way. It's up to you to protect yourself. No one
And
can
I've
tell
heard
if someone
another
has
one.
COVID-19. No one can tell if someone has HIV. No one can tell if someone has cancer. So don't judge people.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally.
See what else.
Another myth I've heard, I think, in terms of this person said that their grandmother can see, has a gift of seeing, in a sense. So they're able to see people that are
So the,
infected or like they're sick. That's what this person said.
really?
I said, well, that's interesting, but I'll still say that is a lie.
Never heard of that.
I'm like, okay,
I've never
okay.
heard of that. And
That
I
person was
mean,
convinced that grandmother had like wisdom, like, like old folk and everything. I was like, okay, you might be true to a sense, but when it comes to HIV, it does not discriminate. So I don't think you'll be able to like pinpoint like who has it and who doesn't have it just from so-called visions.
yeah, it's almost like the assumption that um, people who only get HIV are men who have sex with men, which is also a false narrative. Like you said before, it does not discriminate. Anyone can get HIV. So everybody should protect themselves. Um, everybody should educate themselves. That way, you don't stigmatize people with HIV, people living with HIV, or stigmatize certain groups with the assumption that they get HIV and other groups don't get HIV and stuff like
And
that.
it doesn't help
And
sometimes with the media, actually, how it portrays that
mm,
there's no like illnesses within like the Western world, right? So I had a lot of folks that I were working with in the past where they come here and they get infected
mhm.
once they come to Canada because there's this belief that HIV doesn't
Oh,
exist within Canada. That was a
mhm,
big one where so
mhm,
like we did see a lot of numbers, a lot of folk getting infected with HIV once they like migrated to Canada because of that
mhm.
belief and what's portrayed
Yeah,
within the media that they're going to, it's a better world and all that stuff.
it's true. And I mean, I guess it's on us as aid service organization staff to keep educating people, be it through workshops, presentations, going to events, going to
Mm.
different communities, different organizations, and building relationships so that we can educate as many people as we can so that when life happens to them or to a loved one, they know how to act towards that person or for themselves. They know who to go to access services.
Yeah.
And also, we encourage people to get tested because that's the only way you can know if you're living with HIV or not.
Definitely best to know than not know.
Yes. And if you get tested and you test positive, it's not the end of the world. There is treatment. There is U equals to U now, whereby if someone has a low viral load, meaning if you don't have the a lot of HIV virus in your blood, and then another person also has a low viral load, um, so undetectable equals untransmittable. So if you are undetectable, then there is less chance of you infecting the next person.
Your chance.
And relationships of people who are living with HIV and someone who's not living with HIV are thriving because of things such as PrEP, undetectable viral load, and just knowledge, right? Do you want to add
And another
anything to
fact is
that,
that a
Nate?
lot of people that are HIV positive are the most healthiest people out there because they take care of their health
Yeah.
and they get regularly tested and checking out their CD4
Mm-hmm.
cells, so like their
Mm-hmm.
counts and everything. So a lot of folks have the assumption that a person's sick, an HIV person, positive person is sick, but in a sense that person is more healthier than you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most people go to see a doctor whenever they feel really sick. Then
Mhm.
they go and visit the doctor. But someone with who's living with HIV, like you said, has regular scheduled doctor's appointments, so they can always know if they're sick, if they're not sick. Um, yeah, and also the notion sometimes that people with HIV um, just die of HIV or AIDS. But that's false because if the person is adhering to their treatment, they may die through other means from another disease or a car accident or something, you know what I mean?
Right. It just
So it's
means
not
that
that
their immune system
because
is
you
just
have HIV,
compromised.
you're gonna die. Yeah, it's all assumptions. Um, Let me see. I can get HIV by being around people who are HIV positive. That is false. Okay, so people can use the same utensils. You can sit on the same couch. You can kiss even. You can drink from the same cup. Um, use the same equipment at the gym. You will not get HIV from
I remember
just
hearing
being around
stories of
someone with
like
HIV
folks.
positive.
I remember hearing folks saying that back in the day, they'll have like their own set cutlery, like set on the side that people make sure that they don't touch like their spoons and fork. And imagine like the stigma that person faces of being
Mm-hmm.
like just singled out and discriminated against just because they were HIV positive. So it's great that we've come now. HIV is like way people are getting like knowledgeable about it and like it's getting better. We're not facing the same stigma they once did about like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's why we even like educate service providers so that people don't experience this, be it like they're in a women's shelter or something like that, where now people are going to give you your own cutlery to use and stuff like that. So we don't want anyone discriminating on anyone who's living with HIV. So it's 1:55. If people have questions or they have another myth that they want us to discuss, please type it in the comment section.
And we're talking about breaking down cultural HIV stigmas and myths.
Oh, Karen says, I once received a call from a halfway house asking if people with HIV, HCV would participate in household chores like washing the dishes and would put others at risk.
That's insane.
Yeah, I've also experienced someone say the same thing to me, saying that once they were living in a shelter
Hmm.
and then they cleaned up because it was really filthy to them. It was dirty, so they decided to mop the floors and wash all the dishes. And then as soon as someone found out that they were living with HIV, they were told not to do chores anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. Karen said it was in the early 2000s.
Even that, that's not a long time ago. That's
No,
crazy.
that's not a long time ago at all. Yeah. And I think the person that told me about the experience, I think they said this happened in like 2012. And this was in America before they moved to Canada.
Wow.
It was in a women's shelter in America. Yeah. So that is false. People living with HIV can do chores by themselves or with other people. It just means the floors will be clean, the dishes will be washed. That's all it means.
It
Just like
means
when anybody else does chores. So if anything, they should have thanked that person for doing the chores. Okay,
any
158. Any
questions,
more
folks?
questions?
Well, we'll be back next month as well with our
Yeah.
second topic. But we'll be back
Or if
even
anyone
sooner,
has a
August
suggestion for our
19th.
next live.
Pardon?
I said, or if anyone has suggestions for other live topics.
Mm.
So today we were breaking down cultural HIV myths.
Hi, Eddie.
So, also you can contact Novello. Say your email.
Oh, my email is acho@aidsnetwork.ca. So that is ACCHO@aidsnetwork.ca.
And my email is y@aidsnetwork.ca. That is WHAI@aidsnetwork.ca.
I'd like to thank each and everyone that came in today to join our live. Like I mentioned, we'll be back again August 19th with the rest of the education team. That was going to be fun. We're going to be focusing on HIV and stigma, so be on the lookout for that. So, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
And be safe.
Yes, be safe.
Thank you, Noxie.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Novello.
Tim.
Bye.
Bye.